Hi, my name is Thais Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to discuss a topic I've been getting a lot of questions about, and this is about loneliness. Why we are experiencing so much more loneliness than usual. Obviously, that has so much to do with our circumstances right now, and a lot of people being isolated and socially distancing themselves from others during this time, but also what we can do about it and how we can take what's going on and change the output of it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk to you about 5 key ways we can change loneliness. And I'm going to base this theme, like the theme of this video, off of something that you probably haven't heard as a different perspective before. Or maybe you have, but maybe not this much of a deep dive around. So we're going to do a deep dive into loneliness. Before I dive into all of that, I just want to let you guys know we are doing a stay-at-home sale. We're doing it to support members of our community. I'm trying to create daily videos. We're offering scholarships to people who might be in any sort of financial challenge right now. Please reach out to my team. But we have 25% off all membership bundles, all 3, 6-month, 12-month memberships. And we're really building a community on there. So like in our actual school, we've got 3 live webinars a week now with open Q&A where I host this live sort of chat and we go through certain topics which are largely requested by the community itself. And it's a great opportunity to connect with others. We also have mastermind groups. We have little meetups coming together through the Facebook groups that we have, through our internal members community. There's a members forum lounge. Like there's a ton of spaces to connect online. So I highly recommend joining in there. And again, like we're here to support you. So if you need any help or anything like that, you can reach out to my team, or you can use the coupon code with you below and it will give you access at a 25% off rate. So let's talk about loneliness itself. So I want to challenge this whole like theme about loneliness by basically presenting, and you'll see this with different attachment styles. I want you to think of loneliness as a symptom of you being out of relationship to yourself. Okay, so I don't want to look at this and be like, loneliness, just join a community. That's amazing, but that is also still a surface strategy. That's like you dealing with the effects, whereas the cause of loneliness is you first being disconnected with yourself for prolonged periods of time enough where it becomes painful. Now, we are still wired for attachment and connection. So even if you're like super in relationship to yourself, obviously attachment is important too. But I just think a lot of people focus on like what you can do about the attachment part. And I really want to bring this video and like magnify or just hyper focus on what you can do about the authenticity part, right? The part of you being connected and rooted in relationship to yourself. Okay. So let's start by talking about 5 key reasons. And I'll go into some other strategies and things you can use at the end in terms of connecting to community and building sort of friendships and relationships online and reaching out to people and being more vulnerable. So 5 key things you can do about loneliness, and think of loneliness as you being out of relationship to yourself. Number 1 is get to know yourself. And I know this sounds so funny, but our relationship to ourselves is really truly like a relationship to somebody else. You might be in great relationship to yourself for prolonged periods of time, like maybe 6 months, but then maybe you sort of have this dry spell with being connected to yourself for 6 weeks, 3 months. Maybe you're busy, maybe there was some kind of challenge going on in your workplace, in your family dynamic, whatever it might be, and you stopped having proper self-care habits. Or maybe you're more anxiously attached, or maybe you're fearful avoidant, and maybe you've been out of relationship to yourself a long time because your natural wiring and focus is about being hypervigilant in your relationships to others. So maybe you are very consumed with your relationships to others and not really taking enough time to yourself, even though fearful avoidants generally are hypervigilant and leave themselves alone when they're with others, but then retract to go sort of replenish themselves and get that time alone again. This mostly applies to anxious individuals, though everybody will be feeling some kind of disconnect as just a response to our environment right now, the way that the environment's set up and the social distancing and isolation. So think of let's say you're in a relationship with somebody and maybe they go off to war or they are deported for some reason, whatever it is. Let's just imagine that for whatever reason you can't really talk to somebody for a prolonged period of time. When you connect to them, you're not going to like soothe through them right away. You're not going to be like, oh, they're back, everything's right back to normal, especially if they went off for a reason you don't understand, if they just disappeared for months and didn't say anything and then just show back up again. It's going to take you a little bit of time to like rebuild that trust, rebuild that foundation of getting to know the person, you know, being able to soothe through them, like communicating, feeling you can be vulnerable, share, it's positively reinforced, all these different things. And that same principle or analogy applies in the relationship to you. If you went missing, you know, on yourself for a period of time, or if you've been pervasively out of relationship to yourself for years, you know, what we first have to do is we have to start learning about ourselves again and getting reconnected to ourselves. And this takes time. And there will be a huge correlation between the degree we are able to self-soothe. Okay, so those of you who are more anxious or have an anxious side to your attachment style, the degree that we're able to self-soothe will be in direct correlation with how strong our relationship is to ourselves. And what does this really mean on a deeper level? It means like you have to take an interest in yourself on a daily basis, just like you would if it was your partner, or you were living with somebody. You can't ignore somebody for weeks and then expect that everything's great, right? So taking a daily interest with yourself means like understanding your needs on a daily basis, checking in with your emotions and how you're feeling, being present when you do feel certain things, and being able to dive in and inquire and see what's going on that's creating painful emotions. Understanding your dreams, your fears, checking in with what challenges you've gone through. And really the best like practical tool I have for you around this is to start to observe your mind. Get to know the contents of your mind. How do you think about yourself? How do you think about other people? How do you think about your interactions through the day? How do you speak to yourself in your internal dialogue? What are the patterns or the filters you see the world through? Are you a glass half empty person or a glass half full? If so, why? You know, these are just some random examples, but like start to notice like how you see things, the way you interact with your world, what you think about the most, and look for patterns in here. Just like you would if you were dating somebody, you would try to get to know all of their patterns and what challenges them and what triggers them and pushes them and what they need and what they feel. You need to take an interest in yourself that way on a daily basis. And this can include like having check-in times for yourself. This can include things like journaling. This can just be you sitting in silence, observing and noticing what's gone on throughout your day and reflecting, introspecting, just these like very natural things that I think are there for all of us and we're inclined to do, but the way we get trained and conditioned or socialized, it sort of takes us to this extreme external focus and away from that natural need to contemplate, to ponder, to reflect, these things that are sort of deeper intrinsic needs for a lot of us, especially from the self-actualization perspective. So that's number one. Number two, learn that you can meet your own needs and practice doing it. Part of us not feeling lonely is also us feeling empowered in the relationship to ourselves. So for example, if we're feeling bored, how many times have you guys watching this video been like, oh my gosh, I need somebody to do something with? What about you being able to be like, I'm going to paint, I'm going to sing, I'm going to write, I'm going to explore something new, I'm going to go for a walk and enjoy meeting your own needs in your own company. So a great practice if you're looking to overcome loneliness is to start building this belief in yourself through repetition so that it engages the subconscious mind. You want to build this belief in yourself that, hey, I can meet my own needs. And then you won't have this anxiety when you're alone either. You'll feel empowered instead of this strange loneliness and disempowerment that can happen for individuals. Number three, get out of your comfort zone. Be okay with being uncomfortable. Learn to be with your emotions when you're feeling a bit of discomfort. Try to understand why or what's creating, what's creating. I just like smacked my chin on the microphone and it made me jump. Sorry, I might cut that out. Get okay with being uncomfortable. Try to get outside of your comfort zone. Understand what's making you uncomfortable, how you can grow, and like what makes you feel empowered. And these are ways of like getting comfortable in change and things that are abnormal to you. You know, it's a part of our human experience to have to push our boundaries and challenge our comfort zone. And if we can start doing that in relationship to ourselves, we're also building this bond of trust, like, hey, we can get through these times. Hey, we can be empowered by challenge, by change, by these different things. And that's part of being in relationship to yourself, is to show up for yourself during those times. And it also links back into self-soothing. Number 4, stop doing the destructive things. This is a very important one. Stop doing the destructive things that make you avoid yourself in the first place, okay? There's a reason to a certain degree that we do avoid the relationship to ourselves. And it's usually because either in our internal dialogue, the way we speak to ourselves, the way we show up in relationship to ourselves, we're just ignoring ourselves. Or if we compare ourselves to others a lot. Usually one, if not all 3 of those things, is disempowering in how we connect to us. So, for example, you might have a lot of inner dialogue throughout the day that's self-defeating, that's self-doubting, that's limiting, that's putting yourself down, all these different things. And if that's the case, like, imagine if somebody was following you around all day, speaking to yourself the way that you do in your mind, speaking to you the way you speak to yourself. You would like want to avoid that person like the plague, right? Like you would really want to get away from that individual because they would not make you feel comfortable. And a lot of times people who are struggling with loneliness at a deeper level, like 3 steps before they even get to loneliness, they're self-defeating, which then makes them want to avoid themselves, which then makes them feel really uncomfortable if they're forced to be alone, and then they experience more feelings of loneliness. And the same thing can happen if you're just ignoring yourself, ignoring your feelings, ignoring your needs. If you're comparing yourself to others all the time, that relationship to you becomes an uncomfortable thing. And I want you to imagine, like, you're a young child and you have a babysitter, and that babysitter puts you down, ignores you, compares you to others. Like, it doesn't matter if the babysitter's there all the time. Like, they're going to make you feel lonely anyways and anxious and afraid anyways. So it's really not about like just being with yourself or not. It's the way that you're orchestrating the relationship to yourself, okay? And number 5, show up for yourself with actions. A lot of individuals I see on this like personal growth journey and path are like, they start correcting their internal dialogue patterns, which is so important and extremely transformational, just to like really start observing the contents of your mind. But then they go like this. They do all this work on that side and they're thinking, and then they don't show up with their actions for their needs or just for their boundaries and sense of self-worth. So imagine you have a partner and that partner's with you all day and they're saying all these nice things about you, but then when it comes to like actually doing things for you, they never show up. They put everybody else ahead of you. They forget to do things like pick you up when you ask. They forget to call you back. It doesn't even matter that they're like speaking so nicely to you. You're going to start being like, well, your actions towards me are really painful. So you must think that I'm not that worthy and that I don't matter and all these different things. And so if we show up in that same way in relationship to ourselves, we put everybody else's needs first. We have poor boundaries, going back to my video from yesterday. We forget to do things for ourselves. We don't have any self-care habits. We don't show up with our actions as a whole. Then we are also going to feel uncomfortable and disempowered in the relationship to ourselves, and loneliness is going to be the result. So these are 5 key ways you can change the relationships to yourself. Seeing loneliness as a symptom of being out of that relationship and disempowered in that relationship. And then the only other thing I would say that's really important here is our actual like external habits. If you're feeling lonely, maybe you need to connect to a community. Maybe that's uncomfortable for you. Why? What limiting beliefs do you carry about yourself in the community? Work on those things. Maybe you need to do things online and connect to communities online, or, during this time specifically, right? Or join Skype or Zoom calls with old friends or current friends or family members. Maybe you're avoiding that for some reason. Why? What are the beliefs you have in those areas? Do you believe that you can't use technology? Do you believe that it's strange to be on a camera? Do you believe that people don't really want to talk to you and you're a burden? Like, what are your belief patterns? And question those things, because those can be the barriers to also reaching out and doing those external things. And we're wired for those 2 things, the attachment and the authenticity, relationship to self, relationship to others. And we want to become masterful at both. So for the sake of this video, I wanted to focus on the relationship to yourself because I think it's the biggest piece of missing information out there. So I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if you have any further questions. Write them in the comments below. Any further video ideas, I'm listening to you guys. And this video was based off of a few comments that I had around this. And so was the boundaries one yesterday and all the different ones I'm doing. So feel free to comment. Thank you so much for watching. And please like and share and subscribe to this channel if you're getting a lot of value out of it. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.